Hello, everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Welcome back to another episode of the Day After podcast, where we're going to be talking today about the game against Fulham, where Chelsea won 2-0 at Stamford Bridge, and a lot of controversy surrounding this game. A lot to talk about. And I feel like this is a game that Chelsea fans just sort of want to brush under the carpet, but everyone else seems to be talking about it because of the referee and VAR. So we're gonna go into all of it. How's it going, Scott? You're about to go on holiday, aren't you, mate?
I am indeed. Yeah, basically packed. Go early hours of tomorrow morning. So
Is it Macedonia?
no, it's Iceland.
Iceland.
And
very
a
similar
couple of
places,
others.
that is, mate. Easy to confuse Iceland and Macedonia.
Sorry, I don't
similar
know why.
areas of the world as well.
So you're going to Iceland, and then you're off to Korea, right?
Yes.
South Korea.
Going to Korea.
Yeah, I'm going to South Korea for a week.
That's awesome.
That's class. Like, mate, you should message Fatter what to do. I think he went for like 6 months.
Yes, apparently he loved
yeah,
it. He
he
said he wanted
was.
to stay there at one point.
Yeah, he did. He did want to stay there. Yeah.
Maybe you'll never come back, Scott.
I have to, unfortunately.
How are you, Charlie?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Bit tired, but yeah, we're good.
I mean, listen, boys, it was a good result. I mean, if we're going to keep it, I mean, that's what I want to say. That's the way I want to speak. But we have to address everything from this game. So let's start from the beginning. I'll go with you first, Scott. I mean, you weren't at the game today. You watched it from home, obviously. Charlie, you were there. Let's talk about the setup, the lineup. Were there any surprises there? And how did you feel going into the game?
There's a couple surprises. I think James not starting is always a surprise. I think keeping the front line the same as it wasn't a surprise. I'd say the Reece James one is the only surprise because you expect him to start games most games he's fit for. But outside of that, there were no surprises. I think the front four we had on the pitch, the start of the pitch, is probably our most informed front four in like at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Midfield is never going to change, at least not anytime soon, so that's understandable. And then we don't have any other option at centre back outside of playing Josh. So yeah, I'm not really surprised at the team selection. Think that just in terms of the game as an overall, I understand why Chelsea fans want to brush it under the carpet. It was quite poor, but we got the win, which is ultimately like the most important thing. Not in the best of fashions in terms of the VAR stuff, which I'm assuming we'll talk about. But yeah, I think best thing I can say, like I said, is just we got the 3 points, and you just move on to, obviously we've got the international break now, but then who do we have, like Brentford, I think, or something after the international break?
Yeah,
Brentford,
Man United.
But yeah, like that's kind of the most I can say is at least we got the 3 points, and you know, despite not everyone performing, like we came away with the most important thing.
Charlie, mate.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. We've got to be honest here, but I think given the disjointed preseason, the lack of a preseason, the fact we were playing to the middle of July, I was always looking at these first 3 games as almost like a mini preseason. Not saying that they didn't matter or anything like that, absolutely do. But in terms of us getting up to speed, I wasn't really expecting any like wow performances in these first 3. It was very much just a case of get the points on the board in any way you possibly can. And, move into the international break, continue to build fitness, get more used to things. And then the performances will start to come later in the season. I think the start of the season, you just want to get the points on the board any way possible. I think it's really key to have a good start. And I think part of the reason why we ended up in the top 4 last season was because of how good our start actually was. So it's really important to have a good start. Look, first half was terrible. And we'll get into that in a sec. Team, I don't think there's really... I wasn't expecting any changes from a 5-1 win. But I agree with Scott. The only one that's a bit of a surprise was James. But I think now, you know, not just this season, but certainly last season a little bit as well, Reece James not starting used to be like a big shock. Now, it's not. It's still a surprise when it happens, but it's like... for me, it's not as big a surprise because I think it's going to happen quite a lot throughout this season where he won't start games.
I think the thing is as well, like when we talk about not starting James, it's not because he's not very good. It's because when you play Gusto in the right position, and in a way that suits his game, overlapping, he's a great player. You can't take anything away from him. So for me, my stance on Gusto and James has always been, if you're going to invert, you play James. If you're going to overlap, then you play Gusto. And that's how I feel about it. Now, obviously, it depends on how often we're looking to do that. If I reference last season, then you would think James plays the majority of games. But then I look at this season, and I go, well, maybe it's going to be a different, very different kettle of fish, because we've overlapped in pre-season. We overlapped in the Club World Cup. And no surprise why Gusto's featuring more in that sense. And nobody's complaining, because he's actually playing pretty well. But I mean, I would still be open to seeing Reece James overlapping, but there's definitely a fear of, or if he makes that run, like, obviously Delap pulled his hamstring. We'll talk about that in a second, but you can just see something happening to James when he overlaps, and there has to be that caution. I think that we can all agree a fit Reece James is better than not having any Reece James, just like a Fofana. I'd rather have a Fofana that's available than not. The only consequence of having James available all the time is that you can't have him all overlapping regularly. And then you say, okay, is he good when he stays back? Is he good when he inverts? And I think he's okay. I don't think he's great. I think he's okay. And I think he's good enough to be a part of this squad. So I don't think it's a bad thing to approach James with caution. But at the same time, you kind of reminisce about what it once was. But we'll never get back to that stage, I don't think.
No, I agree, but I also think that with the system how it is and what he's able to do in this team, like you saw it in the game against West Ham when he came on, should go an assist within minutes of being on the pitch from an kind of, I wouldn't say fully inverted, but a more tucked in position than we're used to seeing him in, like, years ago under Tuchel. Should have got an assist in that game within minutes of coming on. So, like, he can still have a positive effect, I think, in that sense. But yeah, I think, like you said, I think what highlighted the Reece not being there last season was the terrible season that Gusto had. His start to the season so far has been quite good. Like this game especially, I thought he was very good. And even with some inverting, like you see the goal we conceded, which ended up being chalked off, he was inverting in that. Like his positionally when we lost the ball, he was inverting. And he actually did a decent job today, which we haven't been able to say a lot about Gusto over the last year. That was a real positive to see. And if he continues performing like that, then I completely agree. We can have games like Charlie said, where you can take Reece James out in there. There'll be a dip, obviously, because it's Reece James, but there won't be the huge drop off we were seeing last season.
I mean, let me ask you this, Charlie. Would you do the same thing against Brentford? Because you've got to also appreciate that James is going to be playing for England. So, I mean, taking fitness into account, is that something we should think about?
Yeah, look, we'll think about it for sure. But look, I'd expect James to probably start that game personally. But either way, I'm not. Obviously, I would prefer Reece James starting, but it's not like Gusto at this point in time is horrendous. There's a drop off, but it's not a terrible drop off. But yeah, look, you'll see them rotated a lot throughout the season. You might see Gusto start 2-3 games in a row. Then you might see James do the same. Like, I don't think there's going to be a set number one right back in this team, like there is at left back, like there is in other positions. I think you'll very much see them rotate throughout the season.
Well, all in all, I think the defensive performance was solid, guys. I think it was a good defensive performance, very good. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit sticky, because even though I'm happy with the way we defended, we should have conceded. We did concede. We did concede.
We got a bit lucky.
We got lucky. I mean, it's very rare after a game when we're doing the fan cams that I speak to multiple fans. And I mean, Joe, I spoke to Joey, for example, Joey Knight, and he said, listen, I'm a biased Chelsea fan, but I don't know how that goal was ruled out for Fulham. I thought it was a really soft free kick as well. I honestly think that we absolutely scraped that in terms of the refereeing decision. But I also just want to highlight, I don't think we would have necessarily lost the game if Fulham would have scored that goal. I would have still have confidence that Chelsea could have gone on and win it. We'll never know. But if you're a Fulham fan, I don't think you're going to feel more mugged off than that in any other game this season.
Oh, no, you'd be absolutely fuming. That comes from Chalobah losing a challenge in midfield. And then obviously, let's be real, Tosin does not defend the situation very well. I know it's difficult, and you got to, Tosin's not got a lot of pace. That 18-year-old kid, that Josh King, actually looks pretty decent. And it was running at him at pace and that, but I don't think Tosin defended it particularly well. It's a good finish. And yeah, look, we got away with that one. We absolutely did. I think Fulham also, to compound their misery, was that corner came after the amount of added time that was supposed to be
9 minutes, I think it was.
Yeah, it was meant to be 8 minutes added on, and that come in the 9th minute of added time, just to sort of really add a little bit more, to that situation. They've got every right to be fuming. I don't want to make this about referees, but just in general.
I mean, the referee was a key point.
Sure.
I mean, you've got to talk about it.
The standard of refereeing. The referee today was poor, but the standard of refereeing again is shocking. It doesn't look like it's any better than what it was. Awful last season, probably an all-time low last season, and it's carried on this season. You've got that decision there. You've then got the VAR decision for the penalty. Right, fine. Send him to the screen, no problem. Looking at a handball, he was there for about 5 minutes almost, watching whether it was a handball. I was like, either is the referee that crap he doesn't know what a handball is, or the rules just so ridiculous on handball, it's hard to tell, because you should not be going to the screen for it felt like 5 minutes, but it was at least 2 or 3, could have been more. You don't go to the screen for a handball and spend 3 minutes working out whether it's hit someone's hand or not.
I think what they were working out was because based on what they were saying on commentary, I think they were working out because in the build-up or just before the handball for Sessegnon, when it was a handball, that's the handball. What they were trying to work out is in the build-up when João Pedro was challenging with their defenders, whether it hit his hand before it got recycled back out to Chalobah for the cross. That's what I think he was trying to work out, whether it's a handball. But like you said, Charlie, it took such a long time for him to try and work that out. And based on what they said on commentary, apparently the person on VAR said it was saying it wasn't a handball, it is chest. But if that's the case, then go with the VAR decision. Why have you sent him to the monitor to check that if you're just going to tell him, I don't think it's a handball? Just the whole use of VAR and the whole refereeing today was shambolic, just across the board. It's just a bad look, to be honest, or a continued bad look, I should say, for the standard of refereeing in this league, in this country, for the use of VAR in this league, in this country. It was just so poor.
This is a very strange reference to make, but for some reason, it's the first reference that comes to my mind. And this is kind of my comparison to VAR, all right? And refereeing as a whole at the moment. So last year, I hurt my leg, right? I hurt my leg and I hurt my wrists. And I had health insurance, right? With Vitality. So I call Vitality and I'm on the phone, blah, blah, blah. They say, right, you got to speak to this company in order to get your health insurance. I then call the other company. They said, no, you got to speak to these people. I called the other one. They said, no, you got to speak to Vitality. And the circle went around and around and around. I kept calling different people and they kept binning me off. And that's what it seems like for the referees. The referee doesn't want to make a decision. The VAR doesn't want to make a decision. Nobody wants to take responsibility. And this is, it's lazy. It's so lazy.
Do you know what? Joe Cole actually said it best on commentary, and I've banged on about this when it comes to VAR. VAR was brought in for the clear and obvious errors in the game. What about the Chalobah? The whole thing with Chalobah is clear and obvious. What about that is clear and obvious? It's not. What about the whole João Pedro thing that you were deliberating for 3-4 minutes on? It was clear and obvious. It wasn't. I watched that thing 5 times and can tell you whether he handballed it or not. That was the point of VAR from the beginning, was for clear and obvious errors to fix those. You see now with the stupid rules they're bringing in, and I don't think any have been actually enforced yet, which I'm glad to see, of like they're now checking, all the plan is for them to check for second yellow cards and goals that come through. That's not the point. That was never the point of VAR.
The thing is though, like it's almost now basically VAR is almost refereeing games rather than a
you've got more than one referee on there.
It's like it's basically a safety blanket, because the ref can be like, right, well, I'm not going to give this, and I'll wait and see if the VAR give it. And this is the problem. the technology is fine. It works. But the people that are using it are so bad. So bad. I mean, and Scott's right. We've got away from what it was originally bought in for, clear and obvious. No one would have moaned if that Chalobah if there was no VAR and that Fulham goal was given. That wouldn't have been a problem whatsoever. And so, yeah, I get it. They've got to check goals on that. But if you can't tell within 30 seconds or a minute if that's a foul, then that's not clear and obvious. It's not clear and obvious if you're spending 3-4 minutes trying to come to a decision.
Yep.
What's the saying? If you've got too many cooks in the kitchen,
too many cooks spoil the broth, mate.
What is it?
Spoil the broth.
Spoil the broth, mate. Whatever the food was today, it was shocking. And that's speaking from someone who ate pretty well today. But I'll be honest with you, I do think it's worrying as well going into big games as well, because when you've got these tight decisions, big atmospheres, how the hell are referees going to cope? This is what they do with Fulham versus Chelsea.
Mate, I think you've got to just, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to accept it, but I think you're at a point now where you know that whatever team you support, over the course of a season, you are going to get done over by poor refereeing decisions, and it will cost you points. I don't know how many points it will cost you, but that is a guarantee now that every team in this league, some teams more than others, it will happen to, but every team in this league this season will be cost points by poor refereeing decisions.
I mean, in fairness, I will say this. We've managed to gain 3 points from this. I'm not going to put it all down to the refereeing, but I think
it's going it goes in your favor,
it's +3 in it. So far, we're up. Let's put it like that. So if we have a poor decision going against us, you're evening the mark. But I mean, you shouldn't have to look at it that way.
No, 100%. I think what makes it worse is, and this isn't a new point, this has been brought up plenty of times in the past by other people, but I don't know if any of you guys listened to Marco Silva's comments after the game.
Yes.
The lack of accountability that these referees have, they can't say anything. Marco Silva had to say it, like, if I say any more, I'm good, like to paraphrase the Mourinho stuff, like, if he says any more, he's getting in trouble. He's getting banned, fined, because he can't speak his mind about what was, as I said, a shockingly bad refereeing performance. And what will happen is Rob Jones, the referee next week, will manage and it will referee another game. He'll ref another game, despite doing a shit job.
Look, that is the biggest thing. Forget the VAR, forget how long it takes, forget the bad decisions. The worst thing, as Scott said, zero accountability, zero fronting up, zero punishment for anything. You can have a terrible performance. Don't worry about it. Next week, you're back on again. There's no accountability. No one comes out and explains anything. Players have to come out and speak. Managers have to come out and speak. Why do referees never have to come out and say anything? Never.
I mean, on a more positive note, can I just say I quite like the new announcements that they make in the stadium.
I think that's stadium is better. It is better for in stadium because at least you're then informed on what's going on rather than the decisions being explained to you. Basically, that definitely helps.
I think that the worst thing is when a referee makes a terrible decision. Obviously, it's happened. It's like the history of football. I mean, it's always happened. And the crowd doesn't really understand why he's made whatever decision it is. And you're like, what? But at least they explain what it is and like the thought process behind it. It gives you a bit of an idea. And you get the reactions from the crowd as well, which is quite entertaining. Obviously, today it was good for us. Let's move on from the refs, though, guys. I mean, we've spent a little bit of time on that. Let us know in the comments as well what you think about the ref. I mean, we can all agree it was a poor performance, but I guess we have to be thankful that it was in our favour. Defensively, take away the goal that Fulham conceded. Is there anything negative to look at? Because I would say it was a very good defensive performance apart from that.
Yeah, I think we defended reasonably well. We limited Fulham to not an awful lot of opportunities. So there was one in the first half where it was point blank and Sanchez, it just hit him like he didn't know anything about it, but he was in the right place at the right time. There were a couple of last-ditch interceptions. I remember one from Gusto, I think, certainly stopped a goal. And there was one from Caicedo as well. We were a bit fortunate early on. I remember a chance fell to Anderson at the back, edge of the box, and it went well, and he put it well wide. If that fell to an attacking player, someone with a bit more quality on the ball, potentially that could have been an issue. So there were a few moments here and there, but generally speaking, we did defend well. Tosin and Chalobah were pretty good. And that's 1 goal conceded in 3 games, and it was that Paqueta strike from distance. So
I mean, that's not going to happen every week. I mean, you wouldn't even put that back down to bad defending.
Well, you would, because you stood off it.
Yeah, I would.
All right.
But yeah, but look, we defended.
I mean, what my point is that it was a great goal. It wasn't like
it was
poor from Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have done better, but you have to give credit for what it was.
We defended well. Chalobah I felt was good today, winning duels and stuff. Tosin as well was decent. Particularly in the air. From where I was sitting, like every time the ball went up for an aerial duel, he seemed to win it. He was winning most of his aerial duels. He was good today, but we will have tougher tests than that. Palace didn't really test us an awful lot defensively. Neither did West Ham and Fulham. They had a few moments, but they didn't. It wasn't a stern test. So there's going to be much tougher tests to come for this defense. But generally speaking, across the 3 games, I think we've defended pretty well on the whole.
I agree, and I agree with what Charlie said. I think the only slight negative from an actual defensive standpoint, there was a couple of times I think Chalobah got caught out of position, positionally speaking, but it didn't cost us at all because Fulham didn't really create too much, especially second half defensive performance was great, from the whole back line. Like I said earlier, Gusto was fantastic. I think Cucurella did the same thing. I think the only other small negative, and this isn't from a defensive standpoint, it's the same issue of now we don't have Cole Willis. We still have an issue building up from the back, unfortunately. I don't know how much on that is the defense on this game, because I feel like there was potentially other players culpable of that, as I assume we'll get to, but that's probably the only other small negative I'd say. But I think that's just going to be an ongoing issue with this defense until Cole gets back, or until we start to see more of Tosin get into games, because he's the only other person who can really do it, I think. But I think that might be an ongoing issue for the time being.
I thought Chalobah was exceptional. After the match, initially, I said he was man of the match. I don't even know who won man of the match.
I think João Pedro did.
Was it João Pedro?
Deserved as well.
I really like João Pedro. I mean, my man of the match, I said Chalobah. I also wanted to give Gusto a lot of credit. I'd put João Pedro in that category. But for me, Chalobah edged it. I feel like he's so underappreciated. He's never had the credit. He's never had the credit. And again, this is a guy that we tried to sell, couldn't sell, kicked out the club, and then begged him to come back. And he actually had the decency to do it and still give 110%. I feel like I don't miss Fofana whatsoever in that back line when I see Chalobah's there. I'm quite happy having Tosin instead of Fofana, to be honest with you, especially when we talk about what you said, Scott, in terms of the build-up. That's not one of Fofana's strengths, but defensively, I think there's definitely an argument for him to make his way into the team. And then Gusto, I'm just so glad to see him. Did you notice as well in the second half, he was on the right wing? It was incredible, and I thought he linked up really, really well with Esteval as well when he was on the pitch. So I was impressed with the way Gusto was on the ball in certain tight areas, not necessarily in the center of the pitch, but rather than going on the outside all the time. Sometimes he was coming in a little bit and just doing those 1-2s. It was impressive to see. Maybe it's something they've worked on in training. I do feel like we've got some stability with this back line. I don't feel like they're going to let me down consistently. I feel like it's solid enough that you are going to win most games without having too many issues. But that being said, that's without playing City, Liverpool, obviously all of those other teams. So we'll see how we fare in those matches.
100%. I think you make a good point there in terms of, I think what we see with our defence, and I think this is true of basically all our defenders when they're fully fit, is we do have a group of defenders where this is comfortably, for me, at least a top 3 defence in terms of you can get top 3 with this defence, no problem at all. In fact, that's why I think we finished third this season. I think to get to maybe that first, second challenging for a title, that's something you need to address in the future, but that's not necessarily what they want to do right now. But I think, getting top 3, top 4, this defence is more than good enough. They proved that last season. I think they're continuing that this season, especially considering the absences. See, I know on that standpoint, I have no worries about them for that goal. If to get top 4 again or to get top 3, not worried about this defense one bit.
I mean, even if we look at that goal, I know. Again, we can look back to the foul, but it wasn't a disaster. Like you
No,
look at the run, what's his name? Josh King, right?
Yeah, Josh King.
You look at the run that
Good
King
young
made.
player.
It was a good run, mate. It was a good run. And
Yeah.
Tosin got back, but then he failed to block the shot. Okay. Could he have got back a little bit earlier and then maybe done something? Yes, you could argue that. Maybe he was trying to play him offside, but I mean he was in his own half. So I mean that was kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think he could have caught him on the trap because I think, like I said, I think when we lost the ball in that moment, Gusto was inverting, so he took the space that Gusto had vacated, but that's because they caught us on the break. Like the only thing I think that Tosin could have done is like he dived, like he made King's decision to cut back inside easier because he kind of extended himself too much. That's probably the only like criticism, and it's a little bit nitpicky for me that I could probably give about that from our perspective.
But I mean, that's a good situation to be in. I'm going back to the Paqueta goal against West Ham. Fine, yes, we could have closed them down more. We've had a lot worse. We've had a lot worse to complain about. It's like when people were complaining about a centre-back a week ago. And I'm going, when people were saying, not a week ago. We missed out on Xavi Simons. And people are going, I hate the board. I hate the owners, blah, blah, blah. Hang on a second. You weren't complaining when we signed Delap and João Pedro. When you saw Estevao on the pitch for the first time, you weren't complaining about Jamie Gittins. You weren't complaining about Asugo and Santos in the midfield and Hasso at cover, which, by the way, would have made our defense totally complete if Colwell was still fit. Nobody was complaining then. So I just think that shit happens. And there's an element of obviously the club having to back Maresca. I fully appreciate that. And I do think in January we flipped the dice and, you know, it worked out.
Yeah.
But there's also an element of do this in the summer. I think it carries a little bit more weight than January, because if it goes wrong, you're really in a tough situation in January because you are going to pay way over the odds for any player.
But the only reason clubs do business in January is, one, if they're struggling to stay in a division, two, if there's been a huge injury problem, or three, because their business in the summer was poor and they didn't do what they needed to do. Those are the reasons why clubs do business in January.
I was going to say, and like kind of off the back of like, if struggling to stay in the division, if something about their season has changed that they have to now, like for example, Villa, I think they needed to get reinforcements to try and push for that top four. They didn't get it, but they needed to get reinforcements in for that. We needed to get reinforcements last January because instead of all of a sudden looking at top four, we were in this title challenge, or had the potential to be, I should say. But yeah, I agree. I think the business we may end up doing in January will be as a result of certain things not being addressed in this window, as we are kind of seeing with the news that came out today.
I mean, Charlie, we spoke after as well. We're both in agreement that we'll probably end up doing a loan for a striker. But then I said, actually, after that, this was after the fan cam. Apparently, Chelsea are trying to block Nicholas Jackson's move to Bayern.
Apparently, the loan has fully been cancelled.
It's done. I mean, it's not happening.
Yeah. So,
that's crazy.
Well, they tried. Well, I mean, it's not officially confirmed that it's done, but unfortunately for Jackson, like nothing was signed with Bayern. You know, Chelsea made a decision whilst he was on the private jet to Munich. He lands, finds out that Chelsea want him back. Rightfully, he's annoyed. I get that. You know, from a timing standpoint, it's horrendous. And it's just typical for this to happen to Chelsea. Like you sanction the deal, and then your striker goes down for 8, and he's out for 8 weeks. I get why he's fuming. He's got his mindset on a new challenge, new country, new league, wants to go and prove himself. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you need to come back to Chelsea. However, it's the right decision in terms of we need someone. We're not going with 2 days left in the window. You're not going to get anyone better in than Nicholas Jackson. You just aren't. And he is a contracted Chelsea player. He signed a 2-year extension last year until 2033. No medicals taken place yet, and no contract's been signed with Bayern. Absolutely, he should be pissed off. But unfortunately, he hasn't really got a leg to stand on. Bayern wasted time. They could have wrapped this deal up ages ago. They wasted time because they didn't want to do an obligation. They didn't want to do a permanent deal. So they wasted time trying to negotiate for an option. Eventually, we accepted an option. But they could have wrapped that up ages ago. Or if they still want to do the deal, make it an obligation now, or do a permanent deal so we can go and buy someone else. This is quite simple. But I understand why he's fuming, because I'd be fuming as well.
I think that's why it hasn't like fully fallen through in terms of, I think our ultimatum effectively to Bayern is you can have him, but it has to be permanent. So then we can use that money to go and get someone else. The thing that I feel for Jackson, I do agree with a lot of Charlie's, is like ultimately he is still contracted to Chelsea. He didn't sign anything. Chelsea are well within the right to do this. I feel sorry for him because this is as a result of piss poor planning again from these sporting directors. They got lucky with the early game, by the way.
When you say piss poor planning, Scott, like
we went into this, Alex. We were going into this season with two strikers, playing both of them at the same time. Like it's not like Delap got injured and João Pedro was on the bench.
Right.
Were you playing both of them at the same time in 2 consecutive games with no one on the bench to back them up? So you had the possibility of this was a chance of happening. We got lucky in a sense of if this game that we played today was the late kickoff, we would be screwed because he would have signed his contract. He would have had his medical and signed his contract by the time the game finished. And then we'd have just been scrambling. Because the whole thing with this, the Jackson thing for me is either don't sell him or address that position earlier in the window. I'm not even saying you have to go and get anyone spectacular, like keep Mark Hugh. His loan is going swimmingly, being third choice striker at that.
He's not getting any minutes.
Did he play today?
He was never going to. No, I don't think he did. One of their strikers scored the winning goal. He's third choice striker at that club, as he was always going to be. He got a little bit unfortunate. They changed formation to only go one striker. But you could have just kept him. You could have, like you said, Alex, go and sign a guy on loan for the season, like we're doing with Buonanotte, just to have cover in that position. But you didn't want to do that. And now you're in a position where you're going to bring a guy back to the club who it's not even like we wanted to keep Jackson and he kept pushing for the move. We told him, you're not wanted. We don't want you. And now he has to come back and play because of mistakes from those above again.
I don't know if we told him we didn't want him because like he was still
training. We implied it, didn't we? We implied.
Well, based on what Fabrizio, again, I don't know how reliable Fabrizio is now after all the stuff that's gone on, but we told, like, based on what he said, it was over between them in terms, and that everything that he was reporting made it sound like it was from Chelsea's end that the relationship was finished.
I mean, it's so hard to know what's true and what's not true, but like it wasn't like a Chalobah situation, for example, where we banned him from training with the first team. He was banned from the first team building. We were actively trying to force him out of the football club. It wasn't like that, and he was refusing to go, and then he goes on the loan instead as a compromise. It certainly wasn't like that. Jackson wasn't in the bomb squad. He was still training with the team, obviously not in match day squads. And yeah, look, he's clearly made his mind up that he wanted to leave the club. Club obviously kind of seeing that he wanted to go, he's not really going to be the minutes here. But I think Chelsea, if Jackson wanted to stay, I think, Chelsea would have been happy for him to stay. There are reports saying that if a move didn't materialise, then, Chelsea would be happy to welcome him back into the squad again. Look, if he does come back and this does all get confirmed, yeah, he'll be fuming, but he's a professional. And you know what? He likes proving people wrong. And there's nothing better in sport than like a redemption story. And there's an opportunity, if he does come back, that he's got the chance to prove people wrong and win people over and start scoring goals. And I'll tell you now, whatever team he's playing for, it's written that there's going to be a Nicholas Jackson winner in that Chelsea Bayern game. You just know it. You just know it's going to happen in that Chelsea Bayern game. Whether he's playing for Bayern or whether he's playing for Chelsea, there's going to be a winner from Nicholas Jackson in that game.
Did you look at the ticket prices? Mate, at the beginning of the game, I was trying to get a ticket booked for Munich. Obviously, I couldn't get it booked, so I was texting my girlfriend. I was going, Rachel, can you book it? It was 285 quid. I thought, solid.
Return?
That's a good return, mate. I thought that's solid. So I was like, go and book it. And she went, it's gone up to 475. I went, book it.
Oh.
She went, it's gone up to 650. Book it. 850. I was like, fuck.
How is it 850?
Yeah, mate, it's ridiculous. I mean, that was one specific flight. Maybe there's going to be others. I'm going to look into it when she gets back. Father's going on the Eurostar to Paris and then flying from Paris. So I don't know. There's options. There's options.
It would have been cheap of him to fly to Paris. and then fly from Paris.
I think I think, or maybe,
fair, mate,
maybe
just
sorry,
fly
Scott,
to
maybe
a
I got that wrong. Maybe he's actually getting the train from France to Germany, because he mentioned something about getting some sort of travel ticket.
Mate, to be fair though, mate, you could just fly to a sort of another place in Germany. You get like
the trains in Germany are great.
You could probably fly to Stuttgart or something, or like another major city in Germany. Fly to Berlin or whatever. I don't know what, and you probably get a train to Munich. They won't cost you much.
Problem is the return though. If you have to go back to that place to come back, I mean that's a pain. But
it's a pain. But it's
if you're going to save a couple £100, then
it's worth it. If you're going to save a couple of hundred minimum, then it's definitely worth it. But yeah, anyway, it's not a travel podcast, but yeah,
it's all relevant, mate. It's all relevant.
It's all relevant. But no, look, he comes back, he'll play, and it is true. I've been saying all summer that you needed 3 options especially because your 2 striking options, one of them isn't always going to play as a striker. It's not like one starts and one sits on the bench, like Scott said. Often they both start together. One plays in a 10. Pedro could also play right if necessary. So when you've got Delap and Pedro playing, you've then got 0 strikers on the bench. Mm-hmm. And if you change something, or if someone gets injured, as we've seen, fucked. Yeah. And we're lucky in a sense this time, right? In January, both strikers got injured on deadline day. Too late to do anything. Thank God this window was still open. Thank God this wasn't a deadline day game, or thank God this wasn't the weekend after the window had closed. Because then we would have been in big trouble. So it's a massive issue that Delap's injured. We should have prevented it. We should have planned better, in my opinion. But we are very fortuitous that A, the window is still open, and B, Jackson didn't sign his loan deal with Munich, and we can call him back, because otherwise there's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's intriguing, like just looking at what you guys were saying earlier about the board, and I think you mentioned planning, Scott. I don't have like a massive issue with the board. My thing has always been with the ownership when I have complained about our transfer policy. I will say that there are a few questionable decisions, but if people want me to really complain or spin it as a negative, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. Now, still looking at what needs to improve, I don't really understand the loan of was it Buonanotte from Brighton? That's a strange deal. However, he could help us, and that's just a good option for depth. I think that was more of a financial play because we didn't want to spend money. I think that was the reasoning.
You say that, but apparently we put a bid in for Lopez as well. So I don't know what the hell's going on with.
I don't see how we can sign Lopez.
Well, Barcelona have rejected the bid.
Jackson stays. How can we? The whole point was that it was like 2 in, 2 out, wasn't it? And Nkunku and Jackson out, and 2 others in.
Apparently.
So why are we bidding for Lopez if Jackson's coming back?
I'm not even going to pretend to know what the plan is, but all I will say is this: I'm pretty happy with most of the business we've done. So whatever game, whatever 4D chess we're playing at the moment, if we're sat here the day after the deadline and we've got a decent squad ready to compete, I've got no issues whatsoever. But it is worrying with the strike. I think it's great that Jackson's coming back. In terms of the squad morale, maybe that takes a hit having Jackson. I can't lie. I don't think that really helps. But Nkunku, I always thought Nkunku was pretty professional last season. Like, it can be done. Jackson gave Nkunku a lot of credit for his attitude when he was at the club. And I always thought that Jackson gave 100%. So that shouldn't change. Like, keep the respect between you and the fan base. We will only respect you more if you handle this in a professional manner, the same way as Chalobah, and maybe God knows, maybe Jackson will continue to remain a Chelsea player if he has a good spell. Like, nobody knows what the future holds, but I mean, it is difficult, and I do agree, Scott. Like, it is strange that you've got João Pedro and Delap starting together, and then you don't have any backup. But maybe the idea when we signed them that wasn't going to be the case, that we could just have João Pedro filling in at times, but because you got Palmer out. That's why we're doing it.
But
I don't think that would
Pedro-
be like.
I
Pedro
do
wasn't signed to be
agree.
a striker. He was signed to be like the whole point was it was like build as the
He's
Nkunku replacement.
versatile. That was the idea.
I agree, but I think what was the telling thing and the thing that gave me pause about that was the Delap injury. He brings George on. I thought immediately, okay, it'll be João Pedro back up front. We'll put Esteval in the 10. We'll put Neto back on the right and Gittins on the left.
Yeah.
But it was George that came on, and it was the exact same formation, just George up front this time. And I found that interesting that you're the guy who's been your number one all through the Club World Cup in terms of from the moment he came in to up until the second game, because first game it was a bit difficult for him. I don't really put that on him. He's been the number 9 since he's come in. You've now moved him to the 10, and it's worked. He's been very good, but it's just weird to me that was the choice. And if that's going to be something that continues going forward, I don't know if that's going to be the case when Palmer comes back. It seems to be working with João Pedro. Like you look at the West Ham game and the game today, I think he's been excellent. If that's how, if our best team contains João Pedro in the 10, which I think it can, and Palmer on the right potentially, which I think it can, and then Neto on the left as like the 3 behind the striker, which for me right now, and it's a very small sample size, but that's what I would do when Palmer's back from injury. There's a number of questions that brings. Number 1 is the striker issue. Number 2 is why have you got 4 wingers on the bench potentially at that point?
But Scott, even having 4 wingers on the bench, like people say we're stockpiling. We see how quickly injuries can happen.
But there's a difference.
We had Delap, we had Palmer fit, and now they're both injured. So I mean,
there's a difference. But you can have a couple of guys, but you don't need 4. Like you don't need 4 wingers.
I'll be honest though. Like if this Jackson thing does come through and he comes back, it just makes you think. What was the point in Buonanotte? Why have we done that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, Brighton said that they want to have conditions on how much he'd play, and I don't know.
It's a straight loan. It's a straight loan. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that he has to play. Apparently, he has to play a certain amount of games or something. But
we can't be giving him guarantee. We're not in a position to be guaranteeing.
That's what I heard with the deal.
Yeah, I mean, that for me is the strangest one, right? Because if Jackson comes back, fine, okay. You've got Garnacho and Gittins on the left. Neto can also play on the left. You've got Neto, Esteval, Palmer on the right. You've got Palmer and Pedro in the 10. Esteval can also play 10 if needed. I just look at it. Where does this Buonanotte fit in? The guy was on loan at Leicester last season. He's second or third choice sort of number 10 at Brighton. And he's coming on loan to Chelsea for a season. Nothing against the kid, by the way. I think, look, he's a talented boy and there's some ability there. But I cannot get my head around this signing at all. And then we're putting in bids for Fermin Lopez. So if Fermin Lopez did come and Jackson is recalled and you've added Garnacho, what on earth are you doing with Buonanotte?
Don't know. Do you know what's interesting as well about you mentioned about Jackson? Do you know what I think when he comes back, what I think will help Jackson is having João Pedro in the 10. Yeah. Another guy who can occupy centre backs, make those late runs. I mean, you saw, I can't remember who put in a cross today that Pedro was like inches from getting to.
Oh, it was Neto.
Because he makes a late run into the box. That will help Jackson massively because he had no one doing that last season apart from Enzo. Like Palmer didn't really do that all that much, especially like latter half of the season. It was pretty much Enzo and that was it. So having Pedro in the 10, I think would help him in that instance in terms of taking centre backs away for him. Whether it fixes the finishing, it obviously won't. But it's just a bit of a weird one to me, and it's going to be interesting how it pans out because, like I said, at the moment it's fine, but you could have been in a position where you spent a large amount of money and like China mentioned, if you end up getting Buonanotte and you buy Fermin Lopez, you're going to have spent a large amount of money on a bunch of players, just all of them to sit on the bench, which I understand you need depth, but when you've got positions in the starting 11, in my opinion, that need addressing and you haven't addressed them because you don't want to, it's just a bit weird. And that's where I come back to the planning. It's just been a bit weird for me this window.
Yeah. I mean, what would you rate it out of 10 so far, guys?
Currently, 4.
It's difficult because, like, up to the club, well, basically, all the way up until we signed Jarell Hato, pretty good. Obviously, I was annoyed that we didn't sign Mike Mignan, but after that debacle, from then all the way up until signing Jarrell Hato, decent. Really, since Jarrell Hato, it's not been that great. Yeah, we've sold a lot of players and done really well with the player sales, but in terms of incoming since that Hato deal, Alejandro Garnacho, which we knew was going to happen anyway, and a Buonanotte loan deal. That and then the whole Xavi Simons debacle, and we never even ended up making a bid for him in the end.
Well, I think I know why.
Really weird. So look, I think the window's been. I think the window's been decent on the whole, but this sort of end to it, I think, has made people think it's not been that good. Yeah, okay, we haven't addressed the goalkeeper, we haven't addressed the centre back.
We've established we don't need a centre back. We've established that.
I think we probably. I still think we do. And more importantly, right? It doesn't matter what we think. The manager thinks we do, and that's ultimately the most important thing at the end of the day. We can sit here and say, "Oh, we don't think we need one. We don't think we need one." The most important person at the football club, the manager, thinks we need one. So, look, whether there's someone available to go and get, whether we've tried, I don't know. Ultimately, the manager's not going to be entirely happy with this window because there's no centre back that he wants. He wanted a goalkeeper. We haven't got one of them either. So it's been good, but I feel like it could have been a lot better.
What's the number?
I'll probably give it a 7.
I agree with you, Charlie. I'm with you on that. I'll give it a 7 as well. I think 4 is very harsh, Scott. I'll be honest.
I think there's reasons for that.
I mean,
for me,
if I was to break it down, like obviously before we knew about Delap and Palmer getting injured, and Colwell as well. You know, we had Hato, Santos is a signing that counts. Estevao is another signing that counts.
Santos isn't a signing that counts.
Of course he is. He didn't play for us last year.
We signed him 2 windows ago.
Yes, for this season. That counts. That's
this
season. That's a player that
doesn't count for this win. I'm not counting him as a signing made this window.
He never played for Chelsea before. He played in pre-season for Poch.
No, sure, but what I mean is though, like that deal was agreed last summer, so
it's still, you know, it's still for me like this. Look, I'm looking at this squad and I'm going, what is better? All right, and I think Hato is better than what we've had in terms of left back cover. I'm looking at Santos and Asuga, and I see better midfield cover. I see Estevao. I see more flair, more quality. A clear upgrade on Madueke, in my opinion. I had someone speak to me earlier say Madueke was better. I was like, what the fuck are you on about? But you know, time will tell. João Pedro Delap, clear upgrades. Gittins, I'm not so much a massive fan, but you know, I'm willing to give him a chance. And then Garnacho as well, who, if you were to say who's an upgrade on, I'd probably say Mudryk. So, you know, if
I wouldn't say that's true.
I mean, apples and pears.
By the way, far off. I agree. I agree. Generally speaking, the squad is better than it was last season. As you say, we've got a left back cover, and we have got better options in attack. On the whole. So we have improved in that aspect, but again, the goalkeeper, we still got an issue with the goalkeeping position, and I think we're light with the centre half. But whatever happens at the end of the window, we can't deny that we have made the squad better this summer.
I mean, that should ultimately be everyone's priority, right? Yeah, so that's why I'm not complaining.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. You know, you should always be looking to make the squad better every summer, or in each window, or however you want to look at it with what's required. But yeah, obviously the way that the window's ended, the way that, you know, a lot of transfer sagas have played out publicly and, you know, hasn't gone our way in terms of the Simmons thing, you know, all that noise about it. And then we don't even make a bid. Something weird going on there, but whatever it's done now. Yeah, that makes it feel disappointing. The Buonanotte deal, I don't think anyone understands that at all. I really don't get it. But it's one of those. Let's hope that he does well. Maybe he gets an opportunity. Maybe it's good rotation option for Lincoln away, and that Cypriot team at Stamford Bridge in the Champions League. There's 2 games for him there. Other than that, mate, I honestly don't know when he's playing and what he's going to do for us. I really don't. And that's nothing against him. I just don't see any point in him whatsoever being here.
Good rotation for Lincoln away. That's a nice. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But,
I'd like to be wrong, but I just can't. I just don't get what the idea with this loan is at all.
Pavos, mate, Pavos. He's good
Pavos,
rotation.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, the Cypriot team, Pavos. Yeah, he can play that game as well. It doesn't make sense that. So, like, we do some good business that we have done, and then we do something like that with Buonanotte straight loan.
I do actually think with the Buonanotte thing, I said this on Lewis's stream the other day. I do think there is a decent player there. Like when he was at Brighton, especially, I thought he was very good. I think going to Leicester, like, while understandable because he clearly wasn't wanted at Brighton or whatever, maybe wasn't the right move in terms of, especially after Rude got there. But at least I think he played like 14 or started 14 games last season.
He got 9 GA.
He started 14 games for Leicester last year.
And I think there is a good player there. And I think, as much as we mock it, and I will mock it, a straight loan is actually not a bad deal for us because it doesn't tie you into anything with Pires coming back and with other guys. The weirdness for me is it's such like how's that the backup to Simmons? Like how's that shift, because they don't even play the same side in terms of both of them are, wingers /10s, but one's a right winger /10 and one's a left winger /10.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird to me. And it's just the default into Brighton.
And they're different. And they're totally different caliber of players as well.
Yeah. Totally. So I think the deal is bad. Like, I think it's a decent deal for us. Obviously, if you can get out of the stupid Brighton needing him to play minutes, and he'll accept whatever minutes we play him in. But yeah, it's like I say, it's just the whole deal is weird to me because of just the shift from Simmons and Lopez seemingly to him and the Brighton thing. But that's kind of the question mark to have about it. And it is, it's underwhelming when you couple that with Garnacho and, like Charlie said, how the window has ended. To go from Simmons and whatever you think of him as a player and just that deal and that player to Garnacho and Buonanotte, to me is underwhelming in terms of optically.
Well, let's talk about the midfield as well, because we've only got about 8 minutes left. We haven't spoken about Enzo. We haven't spoken about Caicedo. Let's start on Caicedo. Let's start on Caicedo because he was out. I didn't think he was gonna play. I was surprised he was in the 11.
Oh, mate, he always plays. He always plays.
You've got to respect that man. I don't know if that's a mentality thing or just a physical thing. He is there every game. He is there, he is present.
He was good, and he'd only trained once. He trained once on Friday, and that was the first time he trained since the West Ham game. And yeah, look, he was good again today. Was it his best, absolute best? No, but he was still very, very good getting around the pitch, interceptions, important blocks. Everything, mate. This is just what he does, and I feel like we're a bit blasé about him as fans sometimes, because it's just like you sort of go to a game, you watch him, it's like, oh, Caicedo was good again today, and you just become accustomed to that ridiculous level week in, week out, and that's not normal.
Yeah, it's just an expectation. Like, there's almost a whiff of the and I'm not saying that he's on the level of these one of these players yet, but there's almost a whiff of the Kante or the Azpilicueta back in the day of oh yeah, he had another 7 out of 10 game, have another 8 out of 10 game. It's it's the same with him and Cucurella. It's just this is just normal now. This is no longer, oh, Moises Caicedo, look at how amazing he is. It's yeah, that's just Caicedo at this point. That is just him. It's weird because you then have it's almost the inverse of he'll have games where maybe he has a 5 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's terrible by his standards because you're so used to him being incredible. Yeah, I thought he was very good today, especially considering for most of the game, especially the first half, he was left on an island, and he handled that as well as he could do, considering how
he's isolated.
Swarming, yeah, and how swarming you could see that part of the game plan for Fulham was to kind of swarm him and swarm the midfield to clog that up, and I thought he handled that as best he could. I genuinely don't really have any negatives to say about Caicedo today.
I don't think the Caicedo Kante comparisons. I think it's a very good comparison. I think it's a very good comparison.
It's more just, I think, in terms of ability. I think to say he's on that level.
I mean, defensively, I don't think anyone will ever be better than Kante in his first and second season at Chelsea. I mean, that was a level I don't think I'll ever see from a defensive midfielder ever again in my life. I don't think you get better than that. Kante did things I've never seen anyone do. I don't think I'll ever see that. But Caicedo for me is just an all-round footballer. And, you know, Kante was so good at the defensive side of the game and obviously covering ground. But Caicedo he's a good ball player, mate. He's a good passer. Yeah. He's got a good shot on him. His stamina's good. He's got defensive awareness. He does what Kante done to an extent. Obviously, he's a very good defensive midfielder. But I don't look at any part of Caicedo's game and go, "Oh, you're not good at this." I mean, you can say GA, but then again,
that's not his job.
Look at his passing and you go, "Well, actually, he does some really good through balls."
Alex,
and,
sorry to interrupt, as you see today, I'll be honest, I'd prefer him to just have an all-round performance and not get the GNA rather than the other way around.
Yeah, of course, but that's his job, Scott. That's his job, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think the Kante comparison is not. People think that you're disrespecting Kante by making that comparison, but it's actually just respecting Caicedo, and the guy's a good player. Just give him some credit. And yeah, we have this conversation every week. We don't really need to have a long conversation about him because it's like, yeah, this is what he does.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you go to a restaurant every week with your family. I don't know if you ever did that growing up or whatever it was. And you just go in. You don't need to talk about where we go. We know where we're going. We know what we're doing. This is how it is, and that's what Caicedo brings to Chelsea. And I think everybody around the club knows what he brings. What about Enzo, Charlie? Because he had a shocker in the first half, but he still got an assist, and then he obviously scored that penalty.
Yeah, I mean, look, this first half was poor. He knew that as well. Severely frustrated at halftime and whatnot. He knew the performance wasn't good, giving the ball away, poor, getting back, just poor all round, terrible. Second half, Maresca dropped him a little bit deeper, I noticed. He was a lot better. Obviously, steps up, takes the penalty, decent penalty, smashes it straight down the middle. His performance in the second half was a lot better. I still feel, he does get targeted more than other players. I think that's definitely a fact.
What, from the fan base?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but definitely large sections. Look, I like Enzo Fernandez. I think he's a great player. But yeah, first half was dreadful. He knows that. We all know that. As I said, second half, he was dropped deeper. It was better. It was an improvement. And ultimately, if you just look at stats, which is why you shouldn't always just look at stats, he walks away from that game with a goal and an assist.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that Enzo is targeted so much, go back to Caicedo, how good he is. And then you see Enzo, and I mean, I'll be honest with you. I see a world-class player in Caicedo. I could say that with chest. I don't look at Enzo on a weekly basis and see a world-class player. I don't see it. Can he be world-class at times? Yes. Has he done great things? Yes. Was he great in the Conference League final? Absolutely. Was he a good player in the Club World Cup? Sure. He won the World Cup. You've got to respect it. But on a weekly basis, I could name, if I really went into it, I could probably name 15, 20 games where Fernandez wasn't 100%. Like, he wasn't that great. I couldn't do that with Caicedo. And I think that's why Fernandez gets targeted more, because you're basically competing with perfection on the other side. So, not to say he had a bad game. Obviously, it's good. Even if you get GA and you're playing badly, I don't think anyone can complain if you're getting two goals.
First half, he was terrible, though. There's no doubt about it. He was awful in the first half.
I mean, Fernandez's performance was basically like Chelsea's performance. It wasn't our best, but we got the job done. I mean, that's how I would describe it.
I just I think going back to what you said about the world-class thing, I think there is the potential for a world-class player in Enzo when you allow him to do more. Because like Charlie said, in the second half, when he drops deeper and he's able to do more with his game, he can show more things because he has more to his game. We've seen that with Enzo in the past. He can be a guy who covers a lot of ground. I think he's underrated in that in one aspect. He's a guy who can make those passes. He's a guy who can affect further up the pitch. I don't know whether it's a case of him being used incorrectly or just him not doing enough on the pitch. I don't know where it comes from, if it's from his side, Maresca's side, a little bit both. But just the way he's been used the first kind of 3 games is just one-dimensional. You look at this game, you look at I think the West Ham game was the same. It's all he's doing is just box crashing. It's just stay as high up the pitch as you can, and just box crash. Get on the end of plays into the box. You know, be the guy who you maybe pick the ball up to have a little breakaway, which is like, yeah, okay, you can do that. But I think you see today he has one where 4-on-3 or 5-on-3, and he messes the pass up or messes the touch up. That's a good chance we have. I expect him to do better, considering passing is meant to be one of his best things. And I think it's just when you almost, like, for lack of a better term, dumb his game down to just being such a singular thing, he's not world class at that. He's not world class at that one thing. So I agree, Alex. Him doing that thing, he's never going to be a world class player doing that thing because it's not something he's world class at, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just a weird one because he's just not being utilized. As I said, I don't know if it's him being utilized or not doing what he's been asked, but it's just not working. Yeah. Yes, he's getting the goals and assists, which is cool, but like it just reminds me too much of Bruno Fernandes, and just unfortunately with players like that, you either get the good in terms of, yes, you'll get the goals and assists, or you get the very bad in terms of you just being a detriment to the team.
I mean, even the GA, though, I mean, the assist was a corner, and the goal was a penalty. So
exactly, it's set pieces. It's not like he had to work hard for that GNA or do anything spectacular. So yeah, it's just a weird one. Something needs to change in that aspect, like I said, because it's just, I just think you're using Enzo in that way is just pointless. Like, I'm not his biggest fan. I think people will know if they've watched this channel, any other channel. If you're just going to use him to be this box crashing guy who can maybe get a couple of breaks in the games, you could use Conor Gallagher to do that. That doesn't require much finesse, really. You could use a Mason Mount to do that. You could use you could use like a decent amount of Premier League midfielders to do that job. That's not Enzo Fernandez for me. Like that's not what we signed him to be. That's not what I think he can be. And it's just a bit weird with how he's being used like that.
Charlie, mate, just give us your thoughts, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, look, I think we saw from Enzo last season his best season at Chelsea. Arriving in the box, scoring goals, important moments for us throughout the campaigns and Conference League, Club World Cup as well. I think to get the best out of him, you just need to get him on the ball more. You need, as Scott said, you need to give him more to do. I don't like it when he plays in the 10 necessarily, or he pushes up too far. We're having this conversation under Pochettino. People were crucifying Pochettino for playing Enzo Fernandez in the 10. And Enzo under Maresca is finding himself very high up the pitch quite often. I don't hate him high up the pitch. You know, he's got an eye for goal, and he can get assists and he can score. But you're going to get the best from him playing deeper, get him on the ball more, get him involved more in the game. And he can still do that, arriving into the box late on as well. But I think to get the best out of an Enzo Fernandez, you need to give him more to do in a game rather than just simplifying his game to arriving in the box.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Let us know what you think in the comments as well, guys. If you're a fan of Enzo playing deeper or further up the pitch, let us know if you agree or disagree with anything we've said on the podcast as well. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do like the video as well. It all helps. You can subscribe to Charlie's channel as well, which is Blue Brother. And Scott, you're on all the channels, to be fair, mate. You're everywhere. So
I'm on a stream in half an hour.
Oh yeah. Oh fucking Charlie, you're on a stream now as well. So yeah. Hey, listen, big up to both of you. Really appreciate your time, and we will catch up very, very soon. All the best, and enjoy the rest of your day.